I checked this morning, there's 195 identified cities over 2 years of closed data in those 7 counties. I know there's not 195 cities around here, but there's like probably somebody's called to a city, threw it in. So some of them are like 1 sale in the last 2 years, 3 sales. So, but we could probably narrow that down to 20 or 25 of the top cities that you all kind of work in, like Burnsville or whatever. So that you can narrow that down even a little bit more than just to the county level.
And we will be able to get out of the Twin Cities area, right? Because I do.
So this goes all the way to the southwest counties area. There's 13 counties in southwest counties. There's a different report for that. And then south counties and River Valley area as well. We haven't done anything more.
Okay.
Or northwest, but we pretty much got the entire Twin Cities in south Minnesota, every single county, which would be, I think there's a total of maybe 10, 13, 7. So
It's just the majority of my work is
which county?
south of Scott County, Rice County, Wasika County, Steele County,
Yeah,
Faribault County,
I don't know the Fairmont.
Lure.
Yeah, so that's in the south county.
What was that?
I'm guessing Faribault is.
What's that?
I'm guessing Faribault is after talking to Mikey and
Maybe it is.
this ship.
I can't remember every.
Yeah, you got a lot of counties.
But we could be, so the other thing is anybody that wants to, I'm gonna be here all day. And most of the day tomorrow until I have to fly out. I'll be coming in early tomorrow morning. To do a Zoom for the group. About an hour and a half. 8:30 to 10, and then after 10 o'clock, I'll be available. So if anybody wants to set up a time to go over something more specific, either to help you with the list of presentations, conversations, just to take this and hone it in, or to talk about different areas, because it's been before, so happy to do that. So kind of, you know, because today we're going to spend time just talking about general how to use the reports. The South report, the Southwest report, they're going to be the same. They're a little shorter than this. You just don't have all of the election data in some of the counties that don't have as many sales.
Well, you may know this, but 90 to 95% of our agents are for South Metro, we're fine.
Yeah.
But 3 of our ALC members are through the main people that go outskirts area.
Yep.
So Pam is one of them.
Yeah.
Mikey's another one. He's probably on Zoom.
Yeah.
But they are south. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's met with both of them.
Yeah, and we built reports off of their recommendations. So yeah. Are we set up for Zoom?
You are all ready to go and you just need to make that bigger. Yeah.
So you can see it?
You tried to do that? Is that bigger?
The sunglasses.
It's no prescription. Thank you though.
Okay, so I'm gonna just sort of get rolling. Is that good? So do you think there'll be a few more people? Maybe a couple. Okay. So I want to kind of, you know, obviously there's just people work, so we can be sort of, we can have a conversation, right? What do you want to get out of today? Why are you here? What is your yes?
So how to use it to get what you see.
Okay.
And build on it. The 60-page report overwhelms me.
Sure.
And finding and presenting cons at a listing appointment, it overwhelms them too.
Sure.
So I just need a 6-page report of the highest things that are most important and I'll build for me.
Cool.
That's what I put together. 60. I'm
Over your head. Yeah,
on 6.
totally agree, by the way.
Would you say it's probably like that summary page we talk about? Yeah, I mean, that's the meat of, and even if the $5 a month, even if that's all everybody uses to start with.
Yeah.
As they get more comfortable, they might find other cards. I think that's
So
probably what I need.
to find the 5 or 6 pages that you can talk to, you can use, you'll understand, people will understand, will get it. and then move on. Maybe even down to like 1 page. Scotty just wants to take it, just give me one
Oh, yeah.
page with some bullets on it, that's all I
You
need.
know what feeds into it?
Yeah.
One page is really where I think we have the most unique in our listening presentations.
Yeah.
Showing what people got higher, but here's statistically what happens. You go in the red box.
Yeah.
And I love the logo, not the logo, the lingo that you use.
Yes.
Do we want to be in the green box or the red box?
Yeah.
And how much we gamble it.
Right, and it's something that stands out. So what she's talking about is conversation and the listening presentation. That's, has everybody heard me talk before in this room? So just, okay, that's what I was thinking pretty much everybody does. So we use the lingo. I don't know if that's why Keller Williams had the Keller, but when you create something that's unique, it gets remembered a little bit. So I remember when I was using this in my personal business, I was a team leader for a while. I've been an agent since 1996. I've sold lots of houses. I had a big team, buyers agents and all that stuff. And we used it, we would use the green box, red box with both buyers and sellers. I actually really liked it with buyers because I would go out, I would do a quick presentation to show them the difference, what a green box listing is, what a red box listing is, and what that means to them. And how they are going to approach that listing if they decide to move forward with it. Because there are going to be different outcomes, as we know, depending on if you're looking at a green box house or a red box house. So we would walk out of the house, but you can't really say anything while you're in the house anymore, because you probably being recorded, right? So we would walk out of the house and we would have a conversation. I'd say, so what do you think? Green box or red box? We would just rate it right there, red box. It gets categorized as something you want to wait on, and what do you want to do? So we would talk about it. And they know what we're talking about that time. Anybody else here for something other than that, or what do you want to get out of today?
To know how this will help me have a deeper understanding of the market, because that I can take into appointments.
Yeah.
with buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
And I agree with Lisa, I'm not going over a 60-page report of an appointment.
No.
But I know that that can help me speak better.
Are
Just
you
having
saying
knowledge.
that you would like to go over a 60-page report to learn how to use 6 pages?
I would.
Because if you are, I really do like people.
She's not that, I'm not. Scotty might.
No,
Yes,
actually,
I-
I didn't know what you're talking about.
No, but I will look through it, and
Okay.
especially the first couple times, because we've come as ALC members to get to know this report.
Yep.
And then I'll figure out, well, what do I need? What does help me?
Yeah,
And then hone it down even more to what can I bring to an appointment.
But if we look like an engineer client, like I've got a
Yes.
couple that are way nerdier than me, and I could never impress them enough
Mhm.
with all my data.
yeah,
So that might be nice to have it with a binder and read it for them and just focus on the 2 or 3 pages that are meaningful.
Yeah,
And
and
let
they can
them-
look through
yeah.
that.
Yeah, there's so many different stories about just clients and people.
that are those, engineer clients, high-minded, analytical type person. And you start to share this with them and they're just like, wow, how come nobody's ever shared this before? How come I've never heard this? Like, this is great. And they'll even start like, really getting into it, which is kind of cool. Anna, anything different?
No, I just need to understand.
Just need to understand it. Anybody else? We have a new member and back there by Tiffany. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you, Maria.
That'd be Maria. Maria's in timeout. That's why she's sitting back there with you. Gotta keep an eye on her. Keeping an eye on her. Okay, so. When I asked you what do you want to get out of today and why are you here? Part of that is because I think that sometimes. Can I give a little bit of just my thoughts on the listing presentation too? Because I think that's really what we're talking about, use of listing. It's for listing presentations. And what I find is when you go in with something like this, your listing presentation approach might be slightly different than a listing presentation approach you've had before. It's going to be possibly a little bit different. One is, because you've never really taken the time maybe to go over stuff like this before. So you need to kind of understand how to work it in, how to lead into that conversation. how to use it, and then how to answer the questions that come up as a result of it. And so it's more than just, what does it say? It's kind of like, how do I actually apply it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? When I knock on the door, when I walk in, when I start to talk about it, how do I lean into it? Right? So one of the things that I kind of thought through when putting all this together and designing the charts in a specific order. So they are in order of which you would use them. So we'll start off with that. And the ones that you use in the listing presentation come up first. And then when you get to the summary, that's pretty much it. You don't really use anything after the summary except for the interactive charts, and I'll show you those as we go through it. Everything else after that is sort of there to educate you. And have a conversation with somebody who really wants to know everything. So you can then go, okay, I'm gonna have to feed this person a little bit more because they're hungry. But what do you want out of the listing presentation? When you go to the listing presentation, what do you want? What do you expect?
I need backup.
I need backup.
Yeah, I mean,
What's your outcome that you're looking for?
well, it's just free list of my thing.
Maybe
Post it correctly.
price it correctly.
I'm not an agent, I'm for the team, I'm just leveraging and supporting.
Ah, I like it. So why are they going on listing
And
presentations?
it's something that we're running into a lot, especially with AI and ChatGPT, is a lot of people think that they're the experts. So I think that building trust.
Yeah.
Showing like, yes, I know
Figuring
this
out that
versus
we're the expert.
Well, so the client thinks they're the expert or the agent thinks they're the
the,
expert?
sometimes the client thinks they're the expert because they
Yeah.
have an amazing AI tool, they can ask any questions. So
True.
how do we provide trust?
Yeah.
Or how do we provide value while also building trust?
Has anybody tried to Google or have ChatGPT or whatever, like say, hey, take a ChartMaster report and summarize it for me? You're not gonna find it. It can't locate it. It doesn't exist in that world until you upload it. You can upload the entire report to AI, Perplexity, Computer, it's two of my favorites. They kind of work together. It's kind of expensive. $400 a month to use Computer now, but it'll take this entire report and build you a totally custom thing with all kinds of buttons that you can do. I mean, there's some really cool stuff that can be done with that. But again, it's as you're starting to find out that AI stuff is nickel and diming you, pulling tokens and money from you everywhere. And the stuff that really works well to take some of these things and create something super creative for you is actually pretty expensive. The writing and things are not, it's still not there. So, but my question is this, so I remember anybody been bold? So how many bold agencies, Cam, you haven't got a bold?
She's new word for KW.
Really? On the ALC Newer KW, congratulations. So, the bold listing presentation, I did bold like 7 times. And, and I did it as that. I did bold leadership once with Diana herself, which was really kind of cool. But the listing presentation, I remember one of the things that stood out with me that I kind of carried forward this is that I like to have that conversation of why am I here today with myself and with the client? Because there are different outcomes that could happen, right? One is you can decide to sell your home and to hire me as your agent. Another is you can decide not to sell your home, or you could decide to sell your home. We agree not to work with each other. And either of those are okay. And I kind of think that going into it and being okay with walking out of it is something that you have to be ready for when you're using data like this. Because you're going to find that there are going to be sellers, if you've never worked with one yet, you probably will eventually, that aren't worth working for, right? And it's so much better to identify that up front and to have that conversation up front. I use this in a listing presentation. I had full, 15 minutes with somebody, 20 minutes, going over everything with them. They said, well, here's what we want. And I said, well, tell me a little bit more about that, because what I just walked through. I'm like, yeah, but we just, this is what we need. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, I don't think the market's going to take us there based on everything we just looked at. I said, yeah, well, this is what we need. Are you flexible with that? I was like, oh, I can't be. I have to, you hiring me to sell your home. I just don't think we're on the same page. So if it's okay with you on this one too. Leave. Like what? You're not flexible at all. And I kind of, at that point, I was just sort of like, no, but I'm not. I've been down this road before. I just sold your neighbor's house. He went through 3 listing agents before he hired me, and we got the job done. You saw it happen. I'm not going to go down that same road again. They were actually already listed with somebody else. And you guys are doing something. Hopefully, that's something that will come out. I got to the end of the driveway and they called me and said, can you come back in? So I went back in and we had a conversation about doing predetermined predetermined price reduction. And we had it written. So have you ever done that before? We say, here's what we're going to do. If we get to this point in time and it hasn't sold, we're going to reduce it by this amount. So that's one of the things that we're going to get out of today too, is how to have that conversation up front so that you don't have to worry about it when it comes up. Because what happens a lot of times, if you think about it, as an agent, you get a week or 2 into something that you think and sort of expected would already be sold, but it hasn't, right? And the seller feels the same way. Like, I thought this would be sold by now, and it hasn't. That conversation of what do we need to do, the price reduction conversation can sometimes happen a few days after it should. It's just natural to sort of just kind of, well, maybe tomorrow, maybe that showing that's scheduled, they sounded interested, right? We start putting hope into our strategy, and it's just a gamble at that point. So this will help us do that. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. One of the things I want to hit on is the data. So terms of use, like I said, you could take this entire report if you wanted to and create your own report. I don't know why you would do that, but some people are really into playing with AI and messing around with doing things like that. So it can be done. And I can even help you do that if there's anybody else on Zoom or anybody else wants to do that. But they're really for you. So Jamie, earlier we were talking about, they're just like, well, how do we get these? And I said, well, I'm emailing to you guys. And then I'm guessing, do you know where they're going to live? Or is it something where you're just going to kind of forward my email? They'll click on the link and download it from there.
I'll plan on for.
Okay, forward them on.
However, I think I'll talk to Jason about having a place where they just use.
Yeah, that's usually what I find best. It's a place where you know where they are and you just go get them and download them. And once you download it, they're on your computer. So this PowerPoint presentation, obviously it's got my little logo there, it's got Cal Williams logo there. When you have the PowerPoint, if you played with PowerPoint before, you could go into the master controls and you can change out logos. You can put your logo on there. You could redo the colors if you have a team or a group that's more, it's like you want it to be your stuff. You can kind of change it a little bit, or once you get into the slides, you can, this is the monthly one, it's not what we're going over today, but for right now, but you can copy and paste this into your own data as well. Just don't pay too much attention to that because we're going to go with that.
So we can't edit anything in it, but we can.
You
say
can't, because it's a
and
picture.
Try to edit that way.
Yeah, it's a picture. I mean, stuff that is editable, obviously, like the interactive charts.
But if we're getting them sent as a PDF, how do we do that?
Well, they're PowerPoint. And
It's a link, not an actual.
yeah, it's the PowerPoint version has an embedded spreadsheet into some of the charts. The spreadsheet that's used to create the charts actually inside the PowerPoint. They work together because they're a Microsoft product. So you do have to have Microsoft. If you've got a Mac, you can still use a Mac, you just have to have the Microsoft suite add-on. So it's the same thing. To use the interactive charts. And it doesn't matter whether you have a PC or a Mac, you still have to have the Microsoft add-on. The free versions of Excel won't work. You can get Excel for free, but all it is just reads it. It doesn't actually, it won't allow some of these functions to work. So it is a little bit trickier. Jane,
One of our marketing gurus online says that Canva has magic players. It's supposed to be things and
Okay. I am not, that's a different, yeah, that would be probably a different class. So I'm switching up the, oh, what did I just do? So I need to share a different one. When you were doing the Zoom, yeah. Okay. So now we're on, does that still say monthly market?
Yes.
April. What happened to the presentation here? I'm sorry, we just want to make sure we've got the.
and
Yeah. Yeah, the quarterly report. I had it up earlier, but it might have got closed. All right. Go back to Zoom and see if we can share that one.
if you just share your screen and then click, so you just. You can do that. First quarter, there you go. Still showing the old one.
On there.
Yeah, I think you gotta go back to, so share. So that guy there, and just share this and then switch it.
Oh, okay.
There, that'll show that whatever you have on.
Okay.
The other one holds it wherever it wants. And ultimately, I think that the group that we have here and online is, they're probably just ready to get numbers.
Yeah.
To look at it. You know, like when you and I discussed it.
Yeah.
I think that.
okay.
Yeah.
Trying to get everything to work here. And now all of a sudden I lost my clicker.
Stop sharing and share then.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I need to,
It's frozen.
I think it's frozen too. I need to close these down. Thank you. That's in the quarterly now?
Yep.
Okay. Can we tell what they're seeing on Zoom? Is anybody? It's not showing? Okay. All right.
Showing the first quarter,
Okay. I think it'll show now.
Yep, ready to go.
Okay.
Okay. Back to the data. There was a question that came up about why our data is a little bit different. So just real quickly, we are going to utilize in all of this information. And one of the biggest differentiators is that I incorporate previously listed information into all of our data. So for instance, days on market, sale to list price ratio. Our medians are going to be different than what the medians are in the MLS directly, or anything else that you pull out of the MLS. And the reason being is that our medians include if that property has been on, if a property has been on the market multiple times, it accounts for the true days on market from the first listing period and the second listing period, or the first two listing periods and the third listing period. However many listing periods there were, it's true cumulative days on market. And if there was a listing price that was higher in the previous listing, that becomes the original list price. So the current list price is not the original list price if it's been listed multiple times. The MLS also accounts for that if it's relisted within a certain period of time, but after 45 to 60 days, depending on different MLSs, it resets and it starts over. I don't know if you know that.
Yes.
So I go back as much as almost 2 years, depending on the time of year that we're in, to match closed transactions with anything that failed that didn't sell in between. And it's a big process and it's part of our proprietary numbers, but that's why our numbers are going to be a little bit different.
So
And that's
it's only if it fails though, right? So like if it's sold a year and a half ago and then it's now on the market again, it's not gonna pull the old. It knows to take away closed. And only, okay.
yeah, it's
Why do that?
a good question. Because that's the real story of the
Yeah,
market.
it's way more meaningful than what we're seeing.
And that's,
If they have like a year-long listing of notes, or let's just say it came up, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That 1 year things. The market is significantly different 2 years ago versus.
Yep.
Today, so how,
Well, it helps us now because the market's better. So it only helps us with the story to be different if the market was like 2000.
it's always going to be different.
Yeah.
The market's always going to be different. It's always going to change. Sometimes it's drastically different than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. So for a while there, when we were doing this, if you think about it, if you had a home that was on the market in 2021 and it didn't sell, and a 90-day listing period and it didn't sell, why? Everything sold. That's a weird thing. That's a weird phenomenon. And then 2 years later, it goes back on the market, or a year later, it goes back on the market. And it doesn't sell. And then another year goes by, right? And it comes back on the market. It's good to know the history. So yeah, I'm guessing that whenever you are serious about a listing, particularly if you're on the buyer side and you go in and you're getting ready to present an offer, you click the history button and you find out how many times has it been listed, what was it on the market for originally, what was the original list price, how many price reductions did they do, right? You're doing this. We just now do it and incorporate it in all the numbers. But that's why, because the history is kind of important if it hasn't sold. Because the same owner is obviously now, making decisions, hopefully, that are different than what they did before. But it's
way
really,
better because we had a lot of them talked about listings that we had in the October and November timeframe last year.
yeah,
That we canceled and then relisted in the spring.
yeah,
And this tells a better story, I think, than.
that happens, right? Where we purposely pull a listing off the market seasonally to take it off when the snow starts to fall and it gets, dirty looking outside. That's what I call it. It's good for all the trees, so dormant and just doesn't look the same because it does in spring and summer. It's all pretty green. That's very nice. Good, but this is cool. So the data is just know that they come out. There was one question earlier, when did we get them? So about the 8th or the 9th of the month is when the monthly reports come out. And then on the quarterly month, it's about 7 to 10 days later for the quarterly reports to come out when those, each quarter when they come out. So they're usually around the 17th, 18th, somewhere in that area. It's when the quarterly reports come out. So it's when you get extracted. We're talking about the greater Twin Cities. There's no national information in there. There is a table of contents that does have hyperlinks so that once you do get familiar with it, you can go to exactly what you want to see. So you can't just go to the summary and get the bullet point summary of what happened this quarter compared to last quarter. Then I can literally just go there and get that. The first 17 weeks is an interesting slide. You get that, and you go right to the interactive charts. You can just, once you get familiar with it. 83 pages is the total length of this report. 83. So even more than the 60 you didn't want to do a minute ago. Now there's like another 23 to address. Market share. Take it for what it is. 13.3%. Keller Williams represents 13.3% market share. You can have a conversation around this if you want to.
Local.
That is our local market share for all of Keller Williams compared to all of Remax, compared to all of Coldwell Banker. Does that make sense?
Tell me again, what's local? Just, I want
7 counties.
the 7 county metro.
But that's like the Twin Cities and around.
Yeah.
And Keller Williams is second.
Which I'm surprised, because people are like, oh, I see a Delta and Remax, I don't see color.
Well, I think some of that has to do with our branding.
Maybe
Because we don't have.
I always say that.
Yeah, I always say that.
You'll hear them, I always says the number one, because all of their, they're one umbrella.
Yeah.
Remax, we have the
But
largest
that's
Remax presence in the
one
country.
umbrella to go. And we're,
This does, right, his market
Ours
puts
does.
it all together.
Everybody's one umbrella in our market. So what I,
Yes.
I see.
What I call this-
Kind of saying, well, compared to Keller Williams preferred.
yes, because they're a company and each independent market center is a company. Same thing with Remax. So that's why they're always at Remax when Remax is clearly ahead of them. So this is what I call a brand report. This is a brand report.
I don't.
And this is the most level playing field you can get. Because quite frankly, does the client know the difference between Keller Williams Preferred, Keller Williams this, Keller Williams that? It's just Keller Williams. And same thing with the Diamond, same things with Coldwell Banker. Right? And are they gonna know that Real and Remax? Who knows what that's gonna be, right? Coldwell Banker and Compass and Sotheby's, they're all the same company. But I can't, they're different brands right now. Now, if they change their branding, then it would look different. But right now, they're still running 3 different brands, but they're all the same company. How are they going to say what their market share is? When they start, I don't know. Jamie and I were talking about this yesterday, the landscape of real estate right now. Who can keep up? Let's just do our job. So. Right, it's a brand stuff, it's like, yeah. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with what's happening in our local market right now, is that okay? That's your lean in the conversation of this presentation. What I'd like to do is I'd like to start with what's happening in our local market right now, is that okay? However you want to say those words, say them. Because what it does is you're asking permission to say, hey, can I go over some stuff with you? You could say that. Hey, I'd like to share some stuff with you about a market. Is it okay if we sit down and talk about this? However you want to lean into it, be yourself. For me, it was just, if it's all right with you, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with what's happening in our local market right now. Is that okay? Well, I always like to ask a question that I know I'm going to get a yes answer to. Does that make sense? So
You just did it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do it all the time. It's training and with so many different. We have sales training stuff over the years, right? And you just learn, it just becomes part of your lingo. It's probably annoying for some people. But it works, so we just do it, it becomes natural after a while. And sometimes before I did that, I would ask the question, is there anything that concerns you about the market that that you're in right now? Is there anything that concerns you have about putting your home on the market? What have you heard out there that is concerning to you? Is there anything about the real estate market that stands out to you right now that we've heard about that we want to make sure we discuss? Those kind of questions to find out where they're coming from. Why? Jamie, I know you told me to get into numbers, but I'm just,
Suggestion.
yeah, so the reason why is because you're going to tell a story about the market. And you're going to lead them to where they probably want to go. Because they've hired you to at least come out, or they've asked you to at least come out and talk about selling their home. So there's some thought process that they want to sell their home. Right, so you're kind of leading them to say, here's what we're gonna do. So I think of it as like a navigation system. The only way that navigation system is gonna get you to where you want to go is if it knows where you are. Right, I can put in the name of the restaurant I want to go to, but if I don't put in a starting place, I'm not gonna get any directions. I have to have a starting place. So that's what we're doing with this question, is really what their starting point. From a perspective, is there anything that concerns them? National headlines are probably what you're gonna get. And, or you're just here, nothing really. But what do you think they're gonna be concerned about? What are some of the stuff right now that your clients, if you ask this question, or if you're kind of talking to them, what are they concerned about right now? Anything? This is the interactive part.
Or in rent.
Yeah.
You know, dealing with that, oil prices, market instability.
Okay, general market instability, stuff that's totally out of our control, Iranian war, blockades, oil prices, gasoline prices, all of the economic issues going on in the world. Should I even be selling? Should I ever sell? Should I just stay here and hide in my house for the rest of my life? Right, what, who knows? There's a lot of that kind of just uncertainty, general uncertainty that comes up. When that goes away, what are they gonna be asked? What are their concerns gonna be? Interest rates, normal stuff. I hear interest rates are going up. I hear sales are flat. I hear prices are coming down.
Yeah, they see price reductions and then prices up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's some of the national headlines right now. Right? And so when they say, well, I don't know, I mean, I kind of hear prices are coming down. I hear that they might talk about turmoil. But most of the time, they're gonna have something that they just read, and the Wall Street Journal just said that sales are flat. That was yesterday's headline. Unexpectedly lower than anticipated, sales have turned flat or whatever their thing was. Right? You don't even really know the full context. You say, well, that might be true overall, but if it's all right with you, what I'd like to do is start with what's happening in our local market right now. See, it doesn't matter what they ask. It doesn't matter what their concerns are. Your answer is what? You tell me. Come on, I just stepped on you.
Let's discuss what's happening in our local market.
Yeah. You should, because that's what really matters. What's happening right here? You're selling a house here, not in Iran, not in Washington, DC, not in Washington State, not in South Florida, not in Texas, not in California. You're selling here. So what's happening in our local market right now? I typically would start with this page. This is page 7. So Lisa, this could be one of the 6 pages you're going to use. But I don't know, because if you're only going to use 6, I'm not sure this is it. But this is an overview of what's happening in the market. These are the basic quick stats that really everybody should know, and should at some point talk about, even outside of this group. This is just the standard basic stuff, because everybody wants to know what are prices doing. So in the first quarter of 2026, the median price for the 7-county metro area, Greater Twin Cities, was $420,000, and that was down 1.2% versus the first quarter of 2025. It's a little bit lower. Sales overall year to date through the end of March are down almost 10% from where they were a year ago. The median original list price to sales price ratio, in other words, how much does a seller should anticipate for negotiation? Right now, in the first quarter, it ended at 98.3% as a median number, compared to 98.7% a year ago. It's down 0.4 points. So sellers had to negotiate a little bit more. And days on market were up to 38. It's an increase of 4 days. So it's taking a little bit longer to sell than it did a year ago. Quick stats.
This
Yes.
is everything, townhomes, condo, new construction.
No. It is new construction, because it's not broken out differently from these numbers. But this is only single-family residential detached properties. We do have a single-family residential condo and townhome report that looks exactly like this. All the pages are the same, but it's only condos and townhomes.
Good.
So this is separated. This is just single-family detached. Then there's just condo. Now, when you get, when you get into the South Counties reports, that's everything all together. Because there's not as many condos and townhomes.
Right.
And when there's less than, say, I usually say if it's less than 20%, it doesn't affect the overall numbers enough to take it out and look at it independently. It's not gonna make that big of a difference. So the condos and townhomes down there, there's so few of them.
Right.
They don't really impact the overall numbers, so we just leave them.
Right. Is there a way to separate out? Because I work a lot of rural markets.
Yeah.
So there's hobby farms. Acreage versus,
No, but might be asked about that too.
Yeah.
There's so few of those, there's just not enough data to really glean anything from it. Because really what we're looking for in this is trends that we can use to rely, or reliable trends that we can have a conversation with that are going to affect somebody's decisions. What you're talking about more is a CMA.
Yeah.
You still have to do a CMA. This is not a CMA. This is a, hey, the bigger picture looks like this. We need to pay attention to it. And here's my CMA based on this. And these comps, what do you think we should do? And they're gonna say, we should price it right. You're gonna say, that's what I think too. Then you're gonna sign the listing paperwork. And you're gonna post the home, you're gonna list the home, and it's gonna sell. That's the perfect one. That's the end outcome. Right? Instead of a conversation about listing and all the marketing and everything else you get into, then you take in your CMA. They fight with you about the CMA, well, pricing, that seems a little low, listen to this, like we were kind of on this. You know, you're trying to go back and forth with them a little bit. They're not realistic on their pricing. Okay, so quick stats. Use it. I like to do it because it's a quick overview. And sometimes I would say this is what, if you've talked to anybody else, hopefully they've at least shared this.
Well, can I add, like, as part of our value proposition, in the world of AI, with everyone thinking they're the expert, you know, they could probably go get this data if they
Yeah.
knew how to search for it online. But where we provide value is knowing, like, if you know going into it, their objection is, oh, I'm just afraid it's gonna sit on the market for 4 months. You can say, actually, compared to last year, it's only up 4 days, and that helps ease their concern. But it's not just objective data, because what if there was a blizzard last year or
True.
this year that affected, especially spring market? Because, you know, look at the next quarter and it could be a very, very different story.
Mhm.
So I think that's where we provide value, is to say, this makes sense because, you know, this year we had the Iran conflict and that maybe people paused. And
Yeah,
so
January, February,
yeah. So
or
this is
locally.
great, but then we have to provide meaning to this and use it to overcome whatever their objections or concerns were. To either minimize it or debunk it, because they're just going off of what their uncle's brother's nephew's mailman said, you know?
Brothers.
You didn't ever talk to your brother's nephews?
Uncle's brothers, nephews, no man. Love that one.
Yeah. It's fine.
Okay.
I always go to him for market advice.
It is sort of weird sometimes where they get market advice.
Yeah.
All right, we want to be the source. But what's really important is what's happening in your price range. That's my lead into this chart, right? So here's the quick stats. Hopefully, if you're talking with anybody else, I always use that because I like to look at their eyes when I say that. If you're talking with anybody else, hopefully they've at least shared this information with you. But what's really important is what's happening in your price range. Because I find that price ranges perform very differently, even in the same area. So my question to you is, what price range do you think you were in? You know, realistically, at the end of the day, when you close, what are you hoping to get for your home? I ask it right up front. You may already know what they want for their house. And you don't necessarily have to use that dialogue if you've already had that conversation, you know how much they want. But if you haven't, and even if you have, it's going to get real, right? So let's just talk about it. So, Pam, you're sitting in front. That's what happens. She's pregnant. I'm going to leave her alone.
Jeromy?
Yep. So realistically, at the end of the day, which price range do you think you're going to end up in? Where do you want it?
Want to end up?
Or where do you, I mean, realistically, where do you think,
Realistically,
yeah, where do you think you're gonna end up?
I think I'm gonna end up in the 300 to 399.
Okay. So they might tell you a price range. They sometimes will just give you the exact number. Yeah. Right? They said, I don't know. Sometimes you'll hear, well, I don't know, that's why you're here.
Yep.
Right? I was expecting for you to tell me where I'm gonna end up. Well, I do have some thoughts on that, but my question is, where do you think, you know, realistically, at the end of the day, where are you, what's your home gonna sell for? And they'll give you a number. So you said 300 to 399. That's the biggest group. Right? So now in my listing conversation, all I'm gonna do, and I did this before, you guys have heard this, right? So in your price range, and the overall market's down 5.6%. You can see that we talked about generally the market's down 10%, but in your price range, it's less than that. It is still down, fewer sales this year in the first quarter versus the first quarter of last year, but it's down 5.6%. In your price range right now, there's 1.2 months of inventory. And that puts us, you can see in this green category, which is a seller's market. And really what that means is that generally speaking, the seller will have advantages during the transaction process in a seller's market. When that number gets closer to and starts to approach this yellow area, it becomes more of a balanced market. And negotiations can kind of favor the seller in some situations, the buyer in others. And then once that moves into the red area, we call that a buyer's market. And that's where typically the buyer will have more advantages during the negotiation process. Does that make sense? So 1.2 months of inventory, you can see that's actually the strongest seller's market lead price range. In your price range right now, 300 to 399, negotiations are down almost a point from where they were a year ago. So sellers negotiating down to about 99.1% as an overall big picture compared to receiving 100% a year ago.
And that includes price drops.
That includes everything that closed. So, right, so you guys, you are her help, by the way. I'm going through the listing presentation with her, but if she doesn't ask a question, you're thinking of a question, ask it. Okay? You're like her bodyguard, you're protecting her. Lisa.
Okay, so this information in libraries is Q1.
Yep.
right? We're not gonna have two reports until July.
I like it. Uh-huh.
So if I'm going to listing appointment today and telling them this,
Uh-huh.
what's happened in April and May, is a lot of multiple offers.
Yeah,
And a lot
yeah.
of stuff, so I think
We're gonna talk about the monthly reports
it's
too.
gonna look good.
Yeah, and you say, and that might come up and it may be something that you want to have to lead into in the beginning. You can't just go directly to the monthly report. Jamie and I had a conversation yesterday. We'll talk about that today as well. But there'll be more training on just using the monthly report. It's a different report. It's a numbers oriented spreadsheet looking type of report. And I have found that once you're familiar with the lingo and kind of what to look for, then you can kind of use that more effectively. It's a little more intimidating up front because it's just a lot of numbers on the page. Whereas this, it tells that story that I'm walking through with Pam right now. Even if she's like, well, this is the first quarter, and I say, well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this after we kind of have this conversation. I want to update it with what happened in April, because April looks a little bit different. And I might just move on to that if that's something that comes up right away. If not, I'm going to continue to go through this because I find that when you tell the story, it is the navigation system that leads them to where they need to go. Sometimes just going right there and bypassing everything that educates them along the way, they didn't get a chance to ask all the questions that they needed to have answered before they get to where they want to go. Does that make sense? Because their questions are still there. And what you're doing along with this conversation is you're allowing those questions to come out so that by the time you get to here's the bottom line, they don't have any more questions. And you've already answered everything by walking them through this process. And it helps you get to a agreement without the last minute stuff because they're able to ask the questions along the way. Hopefully that makes sense. So your price range is a little bit more negotiation that happened this year. Did that include everything? Yes, this is all closed transactions. And this is the median for everybody, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Right now, in your price range, the market is up 4 days, which is the same as it was in the overall market. But at 32 days, that's the lowest of any of the price ranges, 32 days on market during the first quarter, which tends to be one of the quarters where we see the highest number of days on market because based on sales that were happening during typically what's a slow part of the year. In your price range right now, or in the first quarter, 39.5% of everything that closed had to have a price reduction before it went under contract. Basically, what that means is that 4 out of 10 listings, nothing happened. And the seller and the agent had a conversation and they decided, hey, we need to do something, and they reduced the asking price. And then the buyer presented them with an offer, they negotiated to an agreement, and they got to the closing. So that happened in 4 out of 10, 39.5% basically your price range, which is an increase from where it was a year ago. So that's a little more likely to happen so far this year than in the previous year. If a price reduction occurred, here's how much they had to reduce it by, right at about 5% in your price range, which is a little higher than it was a year ago. So what's going on in her head? Math. Right? You might want to go on ahead and do the math ahead of time. Just to know that ahead of time at this point. So far, here's what's happening. By the way, when I'm talking about this, and then I lead into this, their next question is, well, how much is the price reduction? That's what the next chart is. The other thing of why we use these charts in sequence and why we do them this way is because each one kind of creates a question that's answered by the next slide or two. So even if they ask the question, if she's totally ahead of me right here, well, how much is the price reduction? The next slide talks about. Because that's usually what the question's gonna be there. Does that make sense? So that price reduction amounts about 5%. So at $350,000, we just kind of put in the middle. What's a dollar amount? 5%. $17,500 price reduction. She's done the math. Right? You think that's bigger than what she was thinking about, if she was even thinking about price reductions? Yeah, it normally is. Normally, they're thinking in terms of not 5%, but 5,000,
Increments, yeah.
right? Even if they're like $1 million home, $5,000 price reduction, like seriously? Right? So either way, this just sort of, now we're talking about $17,500. I would say that at that point, just to do math, if there was a specific number.
Yes, because I'm not a math person, I'm supposed to.
Yeah, you can use a calculator.
No, but if you, okay, so we're saying here that a fair percentage of the homes had reduced their price.
4 out of 10.
By
In the hottest price range
right,
in the area, 4 out of 10 had a price reduction.
That's the message.
so a couple slides back though says what was the percentage of the list price?
The sales price ratio.
So it was 98.5, that doesn't, those
That's bidding wars that are working it the other way.
math doesn't. The math doesn't math.
That's the next.
She set you up.
See.
I told you this was gonna happen.
We worked this one out early.
So. It's so funny when there's enough people in the room. Everything comes out. It's like, this is what happens in the listing presentation. They're thinking about it, but they don't say it. She didn't say it. Pam's just being quiet. She's just like trying to decide whether or not she wants to kill me. Right, like, or just like, this is great. But she's being quiet, but you're thinking, and she's thinking about these questions, and these sellers will be too. So the next slide, so basically what happens then is there's a difference between homes that were priced correctly and homes that had to have a price reduction. So the 4 out of 10 homes that required a price reduction, they actually negotiated down to 94.1% of the original asking price. And the 6 out of 10 that were priced correctly actually got a median of 100% of what they were asking. So 2 different outcomes depending on whether those homes have a price reduction or not. You may have also picked up that difference there. It's about the same, but that's not going to be the case in every price range. So if I go back to this chart and I look at some of these price reductions, they typically are bigger, or I'm sorry, this gap is bigger than the price reduction amount. Now, in the hottest price range, there's a couple price ranges where the sale to original list price ratio is about the same after it gets listed correctly, which isn't always the case. So just pay attention to that when you're having this conversation with somebody. In other words, a seller might say to you, well, let's just start higher and leave some room for negotiation. We can always come down later, right? Generally speaking, that's actually going to cost you money. Actual dollars is you're not going to sell it for as much. We kind of know that, generally speaking. But in a couple price ranges, first is one of them, and then another one here, 500 to 599. There's a very nominal difference. However, this is not the only cost that's incurred by the people that price their home a little too high. Because the other factor is how long it takes to sell. And my guess is, Pam, if you don't necessarily want to have your home listed for 90 days, but 14 days probably goes off. Why? Because she wants to move to wherever she's moving to. And that's the difference. For homes that were priced correctly, the 6 out of 10, they were priced correctly, they were under contract in a median of 14 days. The 4 out of 10 homes that required a price reduction, which took on the median of 86 days to receive an offer.
You get my adjustment 6 pages here.
Yeah.
No,
But
but I feel that I like it. I was like,
I know, right? I have gone past the 6. I didn't say I was gonna say stuff.
I think you have to have it like printed and ready to go based on the questions they ask. Just know the slides that you flip to, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
You
Depending on
can,
their
you can
concern.
go through this in about 15 minutes. With a relatively quick conversation. And maybe even a little quicker than that for the really high need. Because we're not having all the conversation you're doing. You're just, it takes, between 14 days and 86 days. So when we put all that together, here's what it looks like. I had to summarize everything that I just did. So there's maybe that your just second slide. You really wanted to narrow it down. You can use the quick stats. And then the second slide, but I would probably use a few of the others because it's kind of good to get some of those questions answered before you get here. Overall, there were 4,464 closings. That's 100% of everything that closed in the 7-county area for single-family residential homes. It was listed in multiple listing surveys. The median, as we talked about earlier in the quick stats, what I started with, is 98.3%, 38 days on the market. But you now know there's 2 different ways to get to the closing table. Now, for the overall market, 58.2 is pretty close to 6 out of 10. Were priced correctly. And on this side, 41.8% required a price reduction, which is a little lower in your particular price range. And that represented 1,868 sellers that had to have a price reduction. These are 2 completely different paths that sellers go on. The one on the right is where we want to land up, where we want to help you land. I call this my game board, by the way, because at the end of the day, there's another layer we haven't talked about yet that I want to mention. But at the end of the day, every seller is going to end up in one of these 4 boxes at the closing table. The best box and where sellers win at the highest level is in the green box. And that represents 2,339 sellers. It's 52.4% of the entire market. They received a median of 100% of their asking price in 13 days. The flip side of that is the worst case scenario for sellers. Those are 1,283 actual sellers in the first quarter, which represents almost 30% of the market, 28.7%. Those sellers negotiated down to 91.9% after being on the market for a total of 134 days. The reason that this looks a little bit different than the last slide I was just sharing with you is because this incorporates homes that have been on the market multiple times. Sometimes the seller puts their home on the market and doesn't sell. There it is in this thing that pops up this way. And right now in your price range, it's only 18.2% of all the sellers that put their home on the market.
what's canceled and expired?
Canceled and expired. But in some price ranges, it's closer to 50%. So depending on who I'm talking to, right? If I've got a seller that's in the $500,000 price range, 550, it's more like 50% of the listings that go on the market came off the market in the first quarter. January, February, or March. They've either expired or were pulled off the market. Not completely unheard of around here in January, February, right? Especially this January. So they may just come off the market. My question to you though, is what would you do if it didn't sell? See, so you didn't see her face. Yeah. I know. That's what you want to have happen. And this is a good slide to use, Lisa, even if if you just kind of jumped ahead to this one. Lean into this one next. What would happen if your home didn't sell? And listen. And she just is like, I don't know. What are you gonna hear? Scotty, what would you do if your home didn't sell?
I'm just thinking of one particular client, they need the proceeds to buy before baby comes.
Oh, for you?
No.
Okay. So they don't really have a choice. Baby puts a what I call a compelling event. Right? So when somebody has a compelling event, this is another sales training class. That's like the best scenario for you. Second best scenario is a compelling reason, which could be, we really want bigger, smaller, really want this, we really want this change. It's a very compelling reason to do this. But a compelling event is good. What else might you hear? So what would you do if your home didn't sell? What if they don't have anything compelling? What are you gonna hear?
Wait, for the market,
Yeah, we'll just keep it. We'll just hold on to it until we get what we need. What does that look like for you?
I think this slide is wonderful for you, you having a frustrated seller can do it, like, why isn't the house selling?
Yeah.
Well, 50% of the homes in the pipeline aren't. Like, they
Yes.
fail.
Yeah.
Or they don't. But I think having this conversation at the listing appointment makes that conversation even easier.
Yeah, well, that question doesn't come up.
50% of homes in your placement.
Yeah, if we talk about it up front, that's what all this is about.
Less emotional at the listing appointment. When it's been on the market for 160.
Yes.
But I'm confused by this slide.
Okay, I love it.
I don't really believe that 50% of the homes in the 600 to whatever the 745 price range don't sell at all. So this is the high.
Well, this is the ones that came off the market, right? So here's how this number comes up. You have this total amount closed. Added to the total amount that were expired or withdrawn. That gives you the total finalized listings. Finalized listings means that listing number is not coming back, it's gone. The expired listing is probably gonna come back, but it's gonna be a new listing number. Right, so it's tracked independently and differently. So when we add those two together, and then we divide the total by how many expired, that gives us what percentage of the total finalized listings expired or canceled. That's where this number comes from. And I can guarantee you and tell you that it's 35.2% of overall market. And in a million plus, it's 6 out of 10, 60% of that total number was in this category of things.
Either got canceled or expired.
Yep.
But probably came back on and sold later at the right price. I mean, the same house is gonna be in multiple buckets here.
I wouldn't say better price.
Right.
But it came back on the market and
Yeah.
sold
That's why I feel like
eventually,
this is a little confusing and we've got to be able to explain it because,
yes.
and looking at
The-
that, no, your house doesn't have a 1 in 2 chance of failing. That's what that slide, I interpret that as. And so I want to be able to explain that.
Well, this actually, if it was in the first quarter, it is a 50% chance because 50% of all of the listings that were on the market, half of them sold, half of them expired.
But were possibly relisted and closed within that same period.
Not necessarily within that same period, it could have been, because we're talking about a quarterly thing. But a lot of times they're relisted at some point.
I just don't want Southern to think they have a 1 in 2 chance of selling. their
No, but at some point you need to understand that if that listing is going to expire. Does that, if it, you may be giving yourself credit for, and you may be prepared for that up front. Other agents might lose the listing. That seller may not come back to them.
Yeah.
Why? Because I already tried it with you and you didn't get the job done. Does that make sense? So what I want to know, because if you think about it, this box right here and this box right here, this one's 30% of the market, this one's 13% of the market. This box right here says, I started out too high, I reduced the price, and it sold. This one is, I started out too high, and I reduced the price and nothing happened. Then I lost the listing, and it got relisted with somebody else, and then it sold. This one sucks for you and the seller. This one, you were able to get the job done, but the probability is more than twice as likely that it goes through this double listing period. And that may be part of your strategy. You may have a good relationship with that seller and maintain that relationship. But if you don't, you're more likely to lose that listing than you are to sell it if you take an overpriced listing to start with.
Sally, I feel like you're looking at that 50% of the homes don't sell as like you didn't do your job.
No, I'm just thinking, you know, me, I'm trying to prepare for the objection, and if, I'm a consumer too, I saw that slide, and it is worded that 50% of them don't sell. But
Yeah.
I never put my house in my it does.
But you, so how do you able to, you were pricing it right? Because everything leading up to it shows if it's priced right, it's gonna sell quickly, and it may even in this market go.
Well, and that's the thing is like, if it's like, man, that what you really want to have happen on this slide is for them to think exactly what Scotty's thinking. Why in the world? Like, wait a minute. Now, the 300 to 399.
Yeah.
That's where we're at today. It's less than 2 out of 10. She's probably not that concerned about it. She said, that's not gonna be. Right? Is that right, Pam? You're not concerned about 20%.
Because your house is the best house that's ever been listed.
Even when I asked her, what would you do if your house didn't sell? She's like, I don't know. They said, well, that's, in my world, that's not an option. In my world, that's not an option. Because we're gonna have a specific strategy that will cause your house to sell. And that's what I want to talk about. So based on everything that we just talked about, if I had to put it all together, here's what it means. In the overall market, out of 100 listings, 35 of them are going to end up in the expired or canceled category. That means that 65 of them will get to the closing table right out of the gate. Out of those 65 that sold, 42% of them had a price reduction. That's 27 homes. Understanding that the majority of the 35 that didn't sell were likely overpriced, otherwise they probably would have sold. Or at best, they were under conditioned. Does that make sense? Because you as a seller control one of two things. You control the condition that your home is in and the condition that is presented to the buyers. And you can control the asking price that you're asking for the home in its present condition. So you can control those two things. So the homes are either overpriced or under condition or sometimes both. So those 35 plus 27 means that right now, as of the end of April, anyway, at the end of March, you do have April reports, 62 out of 100 are currently overpriced. So there's really only about 4 out of 10 homes that are priced correctly. And these are the homes that we need to focus on in order to ensure that you end up in the green box and win the highest level. The good news is I brought with me today the 4 or 5 listings that we're going to be competing with. If you list your home with me today, here's who is going to be our toughest competition. And one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to make their house look good and they're going to sell, or they're going to make your house look good, you're going to sell. That's just how it works. So what I've done is I brought them here. And all the pictures I printed in color. I like to just have them print itself. Use a computer if you have it all over it. Whatever. I just like to lay it out there. And then I would have a copy of the tax record and some good information on their home. And I'd say, this is your home. What I want you to do is just kind of position your home among these 4 or 5. From a pricing perspective, after looking through these homes, how would you position your home to make sure that they're making you look good and you look better at the top? And then they go through the price. She's gonna walk through and price her home.
There's something in this one slide, this is what I did, because this is, if every agent used this for $5 a month. That's the conversation, because again, you're trying to paint yourself as the expert, and especially if they're not your best friends and you're competing with somebody else, you're getting to know each other, this shows you know the numbers.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to do the research, the report does it for you, that's why I'm so sold on this.
This one, and this one. Summarize everything very succinctly. For an astute seller that gets it. The rest of them are great to help lead to the end. It's personally what I did. Because I got used to doing those slides in sequence. And sometimes sellers, I could tell, they go faster, kind of like you guys are. And sometimes they're like, I want more. So, you do that, but this side, so 4 out of 10 are gonna be priced correctly. We just need to be competitive with those 4. Why? Because 1 or 2 things is something. They're gonna make you look better, you're gonna make that look good. And that just makes sense. So what are our comps? How do you pick the comps? How did you get, so if you think about what we just did, is I've walked through some numbers and then I presented my market analysis. Right? On a listing presentation, don't you always present a market analysis? And when you kind of teed it up, it's a little easier to have that conversation and have that market analysis be looked at in a slightly different way than if you're just laying it out on the table form. Does that make sense?
And I think it's helpful to bring there's usually 1 or 2 sold comps that you're really basing your price off of. I go into the history of those. And if I'm showing them reduced, they went off the market and came back on to show them, they started at $1 million, then they canceled and relisted at 950, then they reduced to 910, and after 80 days, got a great offer at 10% below that or whatever.
You can't use the history of this. And those are the ones that ended up here. They actually sold. Right? Here's what I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. Here are the homes that are on the market right now. If you list your home with me today, this is our toughest competition. 1 and 2 things is going to happen. That's different than sold comp. The sold comp's trying to convince them. I don't need to convince them anymore. I need to set them up to win. And the only way they're going to win is if they're positioned against today's competition correctly. Not yesterday's sold comp.
And then they feel empowered because they're making a decision.
Yes. So you will find that using this will be more, you'll have more benefit from this by focusing your CMA with more active listings than sold listings.
Which is different than like what we're trying to.
It's very different. It's probably different than class that's going to use. But we're talking about. So it is different, but if you pay attention to what's going out there, because I do, I'm in numbers deep and I'm always listening to what other people are talking about. There's a book called Shift. So on the wall over there, first one to the left, Shift Tactic 7 tells us that you have to price ahead of the market. What kind of market are we in right now? What kind of market are we always in? It's a shifting market. They always shift. So no matter what, the market's moving, it's shifting. And this holds true in every single market. You're priced against your competition that's on the market right now. And they're either going to make you look good or you're going to make them look good. And it doesn't matter if it's 2021, maybe a little bit, because Just put sign, it didn't matter. But it's certainly 2026. Who knows what 2027, 2028? But I can tell you that I can help her land in the green box. If I know the green box listings that are on the market right now, if she lists her home with me today, here's who we're gonna be competing with. Now, what's likely to happen with Pam? Is she ready to list her home today? Do I have a sign in the yard, in my car? Am I going to have her sign the paperwork and literally put her home on the market that day? How often does that happen? Has it ever happened? Literally, like, never? Okay, so that's not realistic. What is realistic? Pam, how much lead time do you normally expect when you go on a listing presentation until paperwork signs in the yard?
Couple of weeks,
2 weeks.
maybe a week. Gotta get photos done.
Gotta get photos done. Gotta stage her, gotta get the condition right, right? All the other stuff that comes into it. This is just the numbers. There's still the whole listing side of things you gotta deal with. Right? The house isn't ready yet. And by doing that, they might have realized it. Cause they're like, oh, I didn't realize that they saw that house, they saw that listing, they saw the sign go up down the street. They didn't realize it had a completely renovated kitchen. They didn't know that the basement had been finished off to that extent, like they thought it was still the 6-inch basement. Right? It's totally new, like whatever. They'll see some things like that. Or they might go, yeah, my house is way better than all of these. And I think we should ask $15,000 more. Does that ever happen? Okay, so we're gonna talk about that. Yes, Jamie?
Real quick, for those of us who are looking against this.
Yeah.
So one thing I thought was super powerful was the fact that we start with, it is a seller's market,
Yes.
so they feel good, that's what they hear.
Yep.
However, then especially when you get to here's the average price reduction, and that was like the first jolt of, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, hold on a second.
It's a seller's market, but what? So that was like, that was like the first one that put me on that.
And that's kind of why I like to use the slides in sequence. Again, I wouldn't deviate from any of these so far, personally. It's the whole story, it's the real story. And I think it's more than 6. It seems like a lot because of the time we've spent talking about each one in our conversation today. On a listing presentation, you probably would, but certainly when you get to that point, even with Pam, it's, you know, she was it 1.2 months of inventory, but 4 out of 10 homes required a price reduction to the amount of $17,250 as a median number. And you're right, that really stands out. And then from there, what stood out? Failed listings. Time on the market. It also was, well, how does that affect? It kind of means that like the median sale to list price ratio, that doesn't seem right. So it's like, you kind of don't want to leave out that slide. It's like potty time. We can take a little break. We can take a little break. We'll kind of wait till Pam, at least until she comes back, so she's my seller, she's walked out.
She did just get up and walk out.
She's like, this was a good, this is a good time. So there's another chart that is interchangeable with this one. I do like this one a lot. It's actually the only one I used for a long time. But there's also one that looks like this. And this one kind of helps reiterate that idea of 1 to 2 things is going to happen conversation. And here's why. So right now, what we know is that 35% of the homes that are currently on the market are actually not in the market because they're likely not to sell. Then there's going to be 27% of the homes that are on the market right now that are going to chase the market through price reductions, ultimately costing them time and money with the tune of being on the market for 104 days. It means that there's really 38% of the homes that are on the market right now that are actually in the market that are likely to end up in the green box being sold in 14 days. And the reason being
that those changes because if you're chasing the market, your price is kind of okay. Your condition was kind of okay, but after you got the price and or the condition in the right place, then it happened for you. In the green box, you were priced at or below your competition, and your condition was equal to or better than your competition. And that's how green box listings win. It's all based on competition versus price, which create value in the eyes of a buyer. So if you think in terms of a buyer, put your buyer hat on. You're going to walk into a listing, and one of two things is going to happen when you're walking through this listing. You're going to say, I like this house better than the one I just came from. Or I like the one I just came from better than I like this house. And a lot of it has to do with the condition that the home is in. For instance, if they're basically the same home, it has to do with the condition of the home and the asking price. That's what creates value. So this is the same conversation. You can use them both, but you don't have to. This one is actually a graphic out of Shift Tactic 7. It's actually in the book, but it doesn't have the numbers. So we just incorporated the numbers. Additional information. Added info, sales that sell at 100% or more. If that happens, happens in a median of 12 days. So going back to Pam's conversation, your price range, 47.5% of everything that sold actually sold at the asking price or higher. And if that happened, it happened in a median of 13 days. So let me ask you a question. If we get to 13 days and the home hasn't sold, what do you think we should do?
Again, you're telling them, you're letting them answer the question versus you telling them.
Yep.
What they need to do.
Right.
And they're calling you on the 12th day. If they need
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It's way more than 6 slides. It's terrible. But they all sort of serve a little bit of purpose. And if you could get comfortable having these conversations and sort of just, if you walk through this, and if you want, you know, can walk through it quicker together. So in 13 days, what should we do? What happens is, what this is telling us is that in 13 days, we just helped 40, if we're not under contract, we just helped 47, almost 50% of our competition. So we should probably make an adjustment. By the way, in addition to everything that we've been talking about, 56% of sellers in your price range also pay some form of seller concessions. Meaning that the buyer in the contract or the agreement asked for some closing costs, or y'all agree to negotiate some sort of concessions or something along those lines. Does that make sense? If that happened, your price range is a median of $8,000. So just understand that that's likely to be part of the conversation, and that's in addition to everything else we just talked
That's depressing.
Yeah.
about. It is depressing, but how many times have you gotten to an offer on a listing and they're asking for closing costs and the seller says, I didn't pay, I had to pay my own, they could pay their own, I'm not doing this. And you just like, well, 60% of the time, sellers are doing it and they're paying to the tune of $8,000. If I let you know up front, at least you can argue with me about it then, instead of when I've got an offer on the table and it's like our first offer in 10 days. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's important to have that conversation. It is depressing, but it's just part of the deal.
But it's important when you get an offer and they've asked for $8,000 of concession to pull this puppy back out.
To remind them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you had a conversation up front, it's
So selling concessions, are you talking about just closing costs paid, or are you talking about realtor commission?
no realtor questions.
Like,
Or like $1,000 off because of inspection by the.
I don't know, well, I know that it's not a real estate commission, because the real estate commission's not allowed to be put in the MLS anymore.
Yes, it's not.
So it's not real estate commission. So when I do the downloads, there's like categories of all of the data that comes in. And this is in the concessions and closing costs category.
And when you put the number in, it's a number, it's either a zero or a number. It doesn't get left blank, I think, in your MLS.
So it might not be reflecting. The operating about, well, I guess maybe like $1,000 concession during the inspection.
It is, yeah, because there'll be concession, there's a concession remarks. And there is some that say, you know.
So it's only as
for
good as the
repairs.
data put in there, right? So
It's only as good as that's the case with agents.
Yeah.
But this one in particular, and you could probably have that caveat, I would actually venture to say, is it more likely that a seller at listing agent is gonna just forget this or not put it in when they turn in their closed stuff after, say, you know, it got negotiated after the fact, it was on the settlement statement, but maybe it didn't get put in as such. It's probably more likely to get overlooked than it is to get added in. Does that make sense? So this 56%, overall 49.7, half of all of the closings, it's probably low. It's probably actually higher than. If I had to just guess based on my knowledge of how the real estate world works,
not our office.
not our office,
Not-
but
Not us.
some of those other companies that were on that first chart
Yeah.
might not be turning that in, especially if you're your own brokerage, and you gotta understand, there's a lot of independent, small little boutique company, or even it's just a husband and wife, they're their own brokerage. And they've been doing this for 30 years. And sometimes stuff just whatever. So if anything, this is low. This, I think, is fairly accurate. Because 50% is a big enough swath to say these numbers are probably pretty accurate. This is totally optional. First 17 weeks. Here's why I like this slide. Because it helps reiterate the sense of urgency and why it's important to get it right out of the gate. Your first 2 weeks represents your highest probability of a sale. The gray bars are homes that sold during that week of being on the market. So in other words, there were 724 homes that went under contract during the second week of being listed, prior to 14 days, between 7 and 14 days. 724 homes. And on week 3, there was 441 homes. And you can see as time goes on, fewer homes go under contract, your highest probability of sales in the first 2 or 3 weeks. That's also your highest probability of receiving the highest median sales to original list price. After about 4 weeks, that sale to list price ratio falls off, and you see these blue lines pick up as a percentage or as a whole, they get bigger and bigger. Those are the homes that required a price reduction. So what this tells us is that one of the 641 homes that went under contract in the first 7 days, they'd actually already reduced the price. 8 of the 724 homes that went under contract in the first 2 weeks had done a price reduction. What did I tell you earlier about what should we do if we get to day 13 and we don't have an offer? Reduce the price. How many people actually do? Freaking nobody. This is how you win as an agent. Because you are now helping her. I'm helping Pam get ahead of everybody else that's losing in the red box. And the reason that they end up in the red box is because they wait too long to make an adjustment to what the market's telling them. They wait too long. So this helps you kind of reiterate that sense of urgency. There's the summary page. So then you get to the interactive charts. So here's how this works. I double click on this chart. And I can select the price range, Pam's price range. Dakota County, Pam, where you pick one of the counties of the 7 counties that it's in.
Yeah, Dakota's probably done. Unless you have Scott.
Yeah. So we have Scott County. So I double click on that and I come back to it. And I hope that this is showing up on the Zoom as well.
It probably will. Cool. There it is. So now I have that game board set up for her price range and her count, stock count. So there were 64 total closings in your price range, 100% sale close price ratio, 35 days on the market. It's kind of quick stats numbers. 56.3% is 36 of the sellers had their home priced correctly, median of 16 days on the market. And 33 of those 36 ended up in the best case scenario, winning at the highest level. That's 51% of the market. They received a median of 100.6%, a little above asking price and under contract in 15 days. The worst case scenario was experienced by 19 sellers, almost a third of the market, 29.7%. They actually had to negotiate all the way down to 89.5% after being on the market for 136 total days. And that's because they've been on the market multiple times and had to have a price reduction. So it's the same conversation I had without the interactive charts. Might be more effective because but if you think about the numbers we were just talking about, they're really not that different. Right? So that's how the interactive chart works. You can go ahead of time and kind of be prepared if you know generally what their price range is, and have this set up. Then the next chart, this one, Scotty, that you liked, I could change it. So let's just see what it says.
By the way, know the difference between median and average? I went on a listing appointment and they said they talked to somebody else and they asked that question of the agent, the median versus average, and they couldn't explain it.
Yeah, that's a really good thought because everything that I use is medians. All of our reports always use medians. And that's because I don't control the data set. If I control the data set, I use averages. But when I don't control the data set, I use medians. Why? Because it removes the outliers from causing a major impact or effect on the sale. Median means that half of them were higher and half of them were lower. So in this case, the median days on market is 107. 34 of those homes had a median of 107. Half of those 34 were less than 107. Half of the 34 were more than 107. Half of the 34 got less than 93.5%. Half of the 34 got more than 93.5%. The median is 93.5. Sometimes people speak to them interchangeably, but they're very good. Because the averages will probably be different. In your case, 57 out of 100, basically 6 out of 10 are overpriced, which means that roughly 4 out of 10 are priced correctly. It's the exact same conversation I had a minute ago, not using interactive chart. So it's not like you have to have the ability to use interactive charts if you don't want to sign up for it. That extra service, Microsoft, you don't have to, but it certainly is kind of nice to drill it down to just the homes in per county and per price range. So then we're going to be wrapping up here. But we're within the 2-hour window, right? I haven't gone. It's not an hour over yet, is it?
You gotta fill all of
Did I just keep going? That's what I do. I just keep going. So then what happens when Pam says, yeah, but? Were you going to say that, or were you just going to list it at the right price, Pam? Or were you going to tell me to leave?
I was gonna say, yeah, but.
You were going to say, yeah, but. So I shared with her the listings. And here's how I used to do it, by the way. This is what I would do. So when I walked in on the listing presentation, I did, hey, Jeromy, it's 3 o'clock. We have an appointment at 3 o'clock. I just did the whole conversation. And then I would walk in. This is a really great house, by the way. If it's all right with you, what I'd like to do is start with what's happening. I just went right into sitting down at the table talking about the numbers. Why? Because sorry,
I don't really care that much about her home. If it's not gonna be priced right. And she's the only one that's gonna set the price. I might encourage her, but it's ultimately her that's setting the price and creating the value that she wants for her home. And she already knows everything about her home. She may say, well, don't you want to see my home first? So I actually do want to see it, but I would like to just start with what's happening in the local market right now. And have that conversation, because I think it's important to understand what's happening. You know, before we really talk about particulars of their lives. Does that make sense? Because it kind of does, it does impact. The condition of their home is a little less important than their positioning of the home. Does that make sense? Because it's kind of combined. So here's what I would do. I would sit down and I would have the conversation. Every now and then I would get sort of this weird look, like all the other realtors walked in and walked around my house, saw all the features. I wanted to tell you about the tankless water heater and the special light switches that we just installed. And I wanted to tell you about this, and you're not giving me a chance to like tell you all this stuff. Right? So because that's not what they're used to. They're not used to just being talked about, but here's what's happening in the local market. They're gonna go along with it. Because they invited you in, and they're just gonna go along with it. And they will. So that it would be the conversation. I would get to that point. I'd say, so Pam, while you're doing this, and we really want you to take some time looking through these pictures with me, while you're doing this, because I already know what these, what's something. I want to get to know your home. And I want to walk through your home from the perspective like a buyer, right? Because you're not going to be there when buyer one. So I'm going to take my notepad. Then I would have, this is actually the one I carried with me. I've had this thing forever. Didn't have to sticker on it at the time. But I'd say, I'm gonna go through, and I'm gonna take some specific notes on everything I see about the home, walk through your home. It'll take a little bit of time to do that. While you're looking through these, and then when I come back, we'll sit down and we'll talk about what we found, and I'll talk about that. Some insights on anything that I might have missed. Is that okay? Now all of a sudden she's like, okay, good. Right? This makes sense. So she's gonna look through that. I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna take notes. I might actually haul her down with a question or a comment. Hey, I noticed you have really cool dimmers in all of these, right? Like something that stands out, Like, this is really nice. I see you just put in new carpet, right? Something that they've done or something that she's done that is recognizable and I want to acknowledge it. And I get the notes and I come back and I say, all right, so what did you find? What do you think? What do you think we should do? So, well, I looked through all of these, but I really think our house is way better. My house is way better. I know that's 325 and now it's 335, but I think we should probably go with 350. I was thinking 350. I was thinking I really want to get 350. And all of the numbers tell us that's not the right number. How often does that happen? Yeah, Pam's looking at me like every single conversation. All right, so now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this. And this was the selling slide, I think, for Scotty in Scott County. I don't know. This was one of them. And I'd say, all right, so here's what I want to make sure you understand.
I was gonna say, even as you were presenting those other slides, I noticed that you said time and money
Yes.
and other factors, like time, they don't think about until they have to see this slide. And like the utilities, you're paying a storage unit. Yeah, and all that stuff starts adding up.
Yeah. So red phone pass, by the way, in Colorado that shows up with the flag, 13,000 some odd feet, taking Jeep over the top. That's some favorite things to do. 30 something. Okay, so and what I want to make sure you understand is that we kind of talked about it. At 350, how confident are you that every single one of these listings
is gonna make you look good, and a buyer's gonna walk through all of these, and the buyer's gonna absolutely choose your house over any of these other ones. They're gonna start with your house first. Because if that doesn't happen, you're most likely to end up, based on the numbers I just went through, in the red box. The data tells us that if that doesn't happen, and 350 is not right, you're headed towards the red box, and I want to minimize that. Don't want that. What the data tells us is that 19 sellers tried it in your price range at that 350 number, which was ended up being too high. In that price range, they started out too high. They ended up at 89.5%, which means if they were asking 350, they ended up at 313. And it took them 136 days to get there. What if you did this instead?
Oops. Forgot it would just advance. I would, have these things set up, but the data tells us that if you listed at 325
Instead, there were 33 sellers that did that, ended up in the green box. They sold for 106%, which is 326. They were under contract in 15 days. So even though the asking price is $25,000 lower, they actually netted $13,700 more. And they did it in 121 fewer days. These 33 people sold their home for $13,700 more in 121 fewer days. That's 4 months of additional carrying costs, headaches, and everything else that comes with having your home on the market, to the tune of another $3,000 a month in actual costs, including carrying costs and everything else. That's another $12,000, which means the benefit to list it at 325 instead of trying it at 350 like these other 19 people did, actually puts $26,000 more in your pocket.
I love this slide. I love this
Are
slide.
you sure you want to list it at 350?
No. Let's list it at 325 and get it sold.
Move on. Here's the paperwork. Right, press hard, there's 5 copies, so somebody remember that? You do? Yeah. Nice. Canada, but I heard she was a numeration. You know what that means? We used to have carbon copies of contracts. And there was literally 4 or 5 stacked. We had to press hard because everybody got a copy. Yeah, well, Xerox. There was no copy machine, just all Xerox. I hate it. But it's just the reality. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, we used to have to like. Give word to the horsepower.
Jamie, you have no clue.
We go back to that.
We're not gonna go back to that.
With gas prices.
Lisa.
So, you mentioned before, where you said that 8th and 9th, a month report comes out, so if I'm going on listing appointments this week, and I want numbers for April.
Yep.
Well, that's it.
Yes. So you can pull up the April report, which is
I almost think the April report would be more important than the first report.
It just, yes, because of the timing of it, but it's 1 month snapshot. And especially if you're comparing to last year it was only in position, it's all, it's probably not meaningful, it's like quarter to quarter. But it is gonna reflect what we're seeing.
So here's what I would do. I would have all of that conversation with Pam, and I'd say, hey, by the way, what I want to do before we move forward, whatever, or if there's any conversation, it kind of didn't come up with her. And the reality is it's not going to change that much, but let's look at it. So here's what happened in the month of April. And I could go directly to the Scott County page. See.
And that, just to be clear, that's why this is 80 some pages, because every county, individual, it's all in there.
It's all in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
So you're only gonna use 15, 20.
yeah,
plots.
because and we're not even going over the fun stuff. She left, so she doesn't care, right? No, she had to show houses, but. How do I educate myself more about this? Because here's what, you're gonna use this if you feel comfortable and confident. If you're a new agent and you're comfortable and confident, you're gonna go out and have more conversations.
I'm not new, I'm just new to Kid Up.
I know,
Okay.
but you understand, I'm just looking at you, right? Would you agree if, as a new agent, how long have you been in business?
I've been a year.
A year. So she's a new agent.
Yes.
And you're on the ELC too?
No, I'm just here.
You're just here. Okay, good. Well, thank you. And good for you. So a year in the business, if you feel comfortable and confident, you're more likely to have more conversations with people. If you don't feel comfortable and confident, you're probably not going to go out and talk to people as a new agent. So, and if you're having more conversations, you're going to have more conversions. It's a numbers game. And if you have more conversions, you're going to get more closings. And if you get more closings, you're going to have more cash in the bank. Right? So I was just like all these C's, I don't know. It starts with ChartMaster, by the way. Sort of, and there's a bunch of C's. But the point is, the whole thing's to make you feel comfortable and confident. So in your price range, the 3 to 350 price range, because now there's 17 price ranges. Here's what I want you to know, Pam. In the month of April, there were 21 homes that came on the market. 24 homes total on the market at the end of the month. There were 27 homes that were in an under contract or pending status. That means that the pending ratio in your price range is 52.9%. And here's what that means. Almost 53% of everything that is available to be sold is already under contract. That's a pretty high pending ratio. Overall, Scott County's at 37.8. NAR tells us that anything over 25% is considered a hot market. So your price range right now in Scott County is a really hot market at 52.9. Not necessarily the hottest, but a hot market. There were 19 homes that closed. The median price in the price range was 390. It's just in between the two. Median sale list price ratio 99.2 and 20 days on the market, with 1.3 months of inventory based on April numbers. The first quarter was 1.2 months, if I remember right. We're going through that slide. In your price range, 47.4% sold at the asking price or higher, which I think is the exact same number it was when the quarterly for her. 31.6% required a price reduction, which I think is a little higher than what her price range had initially for the quarterly, 31.6%. Of the ones that were priced correctly, so the 7 out of 10 homes roughly that were priced correctly, they got a median 100.3%. The 3 or so homes that were overpriced got 91.9%. The difference in days on market was 17 days on the market for homes that were priced correctly compared to 120 days on the market otherwise, and very nominal number of 5% homes.
And I'm actually up. And so those numbers look even better in the 3 to 350 range.
Yeah, the 3 to 350. Was I looking at the wrong line?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the only thing with this, right? It's just following the line.
Yeah.
But I love that you explain what each thing means down there, because. sometimes that's
Here?
not always clear. Yeah.
Yeah, each one of the headings, it's a definition. So I can literally walk through just this April number, and I just told them everything I told them on 10 different charts. And I can just do this without even doing those 10 different charts. And if they might get it, but once I've done those charts and then I just walk them through April, they already know what all of this means.
Yeah.
So what is that? How does that compare to a year ago? Last year, there were 211 new listings. That puts us at almost 21% more homes came on the market this year compared to last year. Total inventory is 20% higher. So there's definitely more competition this year than there was a year ago. The good news is there is also more homes that are going to the contract. Not quite to the same level, which means that generally the pending ratio, even though it was considered pretty hot in Scott County, it's actually a little bit cooler than it was a year ago. It's not quite as hot, down almost a point. There were a total of 126 closings in Scott County this year compared to 131, so it's down a few. 3.8%. When you combine the additional inventory and how many homes, there was a couple sold that were a little less, it means that generally speaking, months of supply has gone up. So that strong sellers market has weakened just a little bit year over year in Scott County.
This is all price range.
This is all price ranges.
Because that's not consistent with what the price range is, but it's a good.
Yeah, you can't, this,
Yeah.
this kind of it gets hard to drill down to 17 price ranges and actually have numbers that show up.
Yeah.
So the median price overall in Scott County is up a little bit, but relatively flat, 488 to 492. Median sale to list, original list price year over year has eroded a little bit. So the seller's ability to negotiate come down as a median number. And days on market are up somewhat considerably, 18 days last year to 34 days this year in Scott County. Homes that sold at the asking price or higher dipped below 50% down to 42.1%, which is a 10-point drop. So much less likely to get that asking price or above this year. And when we get to the important stuff, price reductions are more likely by 8 points. The price reduction amount is 1.9 percentage points higher this year than it was last year. So the dollar amount's gotten higher. The good news is if it's priced correctly, it's still relatively strong at 100% overall. Compared to 100.3, it's gone down a little bit. But if the price is incorrect, it's gone down by 2.4 percentage points, which means the gap, the spread between the two has increased. Basically, the way I word it is the penalty or overpricing is stiffer this year than it was a year ago. And days on market, about the same. It's gone up 6 days here. It went down a few days here for the overpriced homes. So there's kind of a little less of a penalty this year for days on market in Scott County. And then overall, more likely for sellers to pay closing costs and a dollar amount being higher. And it's almost 10 points more likely to end up not selling at all at 39.7% compared to 29.5%. So that's your monthly report that goes over Scott County by price range. In addition to the monthly report by county, there's a couple other slides that I think are important. This one is one of them in particular. I don't have this by county. I'm working on that to where it's county specific, but specific. There's a whole 13 months. It's a full year. So here's where we are this year. By the way, this is what Jamie's going to go over with us every month, right?
That's right.
We're going to end this real quick. So these are all of the headings that were on this chart are now horizontal here and over here. So it's all being categorized. It's all being tracked. But here are the numbers where we were for April. 57% overall market for Greater Twin Cities sold at the asking price or higher in a median of 11 days. Remember when I said, so what would you do if you got to 14 days and your home didn't sell? Based on April's numbers, it's actually 11. Because the data tells us that after 11 days on the market, 57% are going to be under contract. By the time you get to 12 days, you now have 70% of the homes under contract because they're priced correctly. So your window of opportunity is very short. Somewhere in that 11 to 12 days, it needs to be priced correct, and we will know it. So if we get to that time, we don't have an offer of what should we, right? We already had that conversation. How much should we reduce it by? This is just an interesting chart. I'm just going to point this out. I know she's not the room, but to educate us. This January, there were 1,210 closings. You have to go all the way back to 2008 to have fewer closings.
But wait, rates are stopping people from selling and buying.
12, right? It's true. This is the lowest number of closings we've had. Now it dipped down pretty low in 2023, but it was a little higher than 1210. 1,210 closings, the fewest number of closings in this area. There's the market has definitely slowed down. There's not as many closings happening. It's just, that's the reality of this. Now it's seasonal. It's a low point. We know that. But we'll have to track it, see where it comes. Visitor talking points for the month. This is your cheat sheet. If you carry this with you, you'll be able to have a conversation with anybody who asks, hey, how's the market? What's going on? Is this a good time? Should I do anything? Well, what we're seeing is that there are more new listings coming on the market. Inventory's up a little bit. Good news is there's also a lot more homes going under contract. Slightly fewer closed transactions than a year ago, so on and so forth. So you can use this as your cheat sheet. And final chart is what is the price reduction amount? Remember that first 17 weeks? And I told you if we do a price reduction early, we can be ahead of the game. Most sellers wait too long to do a price reduction. So if we know the median price reduction is 5.4%, if that price reduction happened in the first 2 weeks, the amount of price reduction that got the job done was 3.5%. So if we get to day 10 and we don't have an offer, my suggestion is that we're going to reduce it by 3.5%, and we do the math, so it's going to be roughly for her price range about 10 or 11,000 dollars.
Which I love that you started with the 5%, so they already put the number 17.5.
Yep.
And you get to hear and you encourage them, let's make this sooner, and then we may not have to drop as much.
Yes.
So then you would feel better.
Yeah, and that's what the data tells us. But if we wait too long, it's actually more than 5%. You see, if you get all the way to 160 days, total days on the market, you're looking at a 7-point drop. So, yeah. Right, everything gets answered. There's a chart to really speak to the situation, but you can have all of that laid out and understand it. What do you think about the monthly charts, Lisa?
It's not as difficult as I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of overwhelmed with them, to be honest with you. Like, I was just thinking, all right, so how does somebody, like, where do you start? Do you start with what sheets? And understand them and use them, and then build on, because like for 2 hours we were talking and I was kind of following, tracking, and then now I'm just like, but we kind of, you said that on that sheet, but then there's this sheet, and now I'm getting confused.
Well, and it's because one of the things we jumped from the quarterly to the monthly, and it's saying the same stuff, only just for April.
Some of it is we went from the 7-county market to Scott County.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
within 300 price points. So I
Yeah.
think what we'll do, the market center, like that's kind of the initiative I've taken on, is we'll break it down into 10 slides of what is meaningful. Because I am jazzed by this, because if I have this on my computer and they say, well, what about this? I know I'll be able to go to it and speak to it intelligently, because nothing frustrates me more than being in a listing appointment and having to say, I don't know, and I'll find that information to get back to you. I don't like to be caught off guard. And once you know the report, you're kind of prepared at every listing appointment you go to.
What I have found, Lisa, is that agents that are using this more regularly and they've had it. So we've had some offices in the Southeast region, which is where I became familiar with this, that have been using these reports, not exactly like this, but they've been the concept of this since 2008. We've been doing this for a long time. And some market centers have been teaching this and using it for, which was me included, which is why I bought the company. When I designed this to be used as like 2 charts that basically say everything in 2 charts. But you have to know how to read it, and you have to know how to explain it. And sometimes it's a little easier to explain it with the quarterly pictures and the way that the chart works in your price range, and she came up with her price range, and that whole conversation can be beneficial. But this is really let's just get to the point. Here's how many homes came on the market. This is a new inventory that came on the market. Here's how much total inventory we have, so total competition, the pending ratio, right, which is how hot the market is, so on and so forth. I can go through and have that conversation, and they'll probably pick up on, wow,
And you said it says new construction as well as.
This is new construction built into it.
And only single family homes, so somewhere in there were slides that were just townhomes.
She doesn't want to know any other she doesn't want to know any more slides, but yes. But I actually do have a new construction chart that
Well-
breaks out new construction.
Well, and I guess because the scenario that I have is, I have a listing that she is still in a neighborhood, it's 2022 built, and it's still in a neighborhood that's new construction. And
So
so,
that's her competition.
yeah, so trying to figure out that price.
What county?
Nothing, I feel.
Yeah, Hennepin County. And she has a resale home, and you want to know what's going on in Hennepin County for new construction. So this chart, which is page 35, breaks out resale homes in Hennepin County compared to new construction homes in Hennepin County. It tells us that resale is down 10% year over year. Sale to original list prices eroded by 0.4%, so down a little bit. Days on market nominal, it's up 2. For new construction, sold listings are down 30%. Sale to original list price ratio is almost 2 points lower, so builders are discounting and coming off their price more. 96.8 compared to 98.5. Days on market are higher, 97 days, up 47% for new builds compared to resale homes. Price reductions, 50% of all of the builders are reducing their price to the tune of 6.7% compared to resale homes, 38.7 are reducing to the tune of 5.7%. If it's priced correctly, in both cases, sellers of new construction are getting 100%. Or not. If it's not priced correctly, they're getting 91.7. Not price reduced days on the market, biggest difference, right? When a builder starts off and it's a hot, whatever neighborhood, they're selling right away. 4 days on the market compared to 14 days on the market, 101 compared. That number can't be calculated. That's why it's white, because last year it was basically. So if you ever see blanks, it's because it's a number that can't be calculated in math. Another interesting thing, very, very big difference. Builders, 72% of all of the builders are paying, have failed to sell. 59% are paying concessions to the tune of 10 grand compared to resale sellers, 49% and 7 grand. So if you're competing with new construction, you need to know what the builders are doing, how much they're discounting, how often they're discounting, and how much concessions they're giving. If you want to be competitive with them, if you're in the same neighborhood, that's what it'll take. So it's all there, almost. I don't have the active listing and stuff yet because just don't have all the year-over-year data for breaking out new construction. That's all we'll hear into this. Other stuff I could use archive data. I have some good too. What do you think? Does that help you a little bit? Cool. Other questions or thoughts? Or like a specific scenario you want to talk about for your listing? I'm here till Thursday. No, actually, I'm till tomorrow. Wednesday. But if you want to meet.
And I recorded it on auto speak or auto, because your scripts that go with it
Yeah.
are just as important as the data.
Thank you.
I'll teach that.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's nothing else or no specific questions, that really kind of sums everything up. For the listing presentation. There was obviously a lot of charts we didn't go through.
Anybody just wants more punishment, I'm happy to go through them with you.
We get this email to us on a monthly basis.
Yep, not,
And quarterly comes out.
yep, quarterly. About a week and a half after.
And you're sending it to Jamie and then Jamie's distributing it to the rest of us? Is
I think
that
that's what we've decided, yeah.
until Jason has a spot?
Yep. Yep.
And if you ever need it sooner, or you need something, or you have a question, my email is on every single page in in the fine print at the bottom. And on the cover letter is my email, cover page is my email address and my cell phone number. So you guys can text me and call me if you're in a situation like, hey, I've got a listing appointment this weekend and I'm going through it. I just want to make sure I'm doing this right, or I've got the right slides, or I'm thinking along the right lines. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love those calls. And sometimes it's just a question. It's just like, hey, this doesn't look right.
Right.
Am I reading this right? Like, this doesn't look right. And then I'll
Yeah. So it's been.
Yeah. Every now and then the math is just like, it looks weird because the numbers are so different. So it can be like, that doesn't make any sense.
When will we get our first one to play with?
Hopefully you have it. These are live and ready to go. Yep, April and first quarter in April are ready for you. Yes.
So you'll be around tomorrow after our team meeting?
Yeah. I can come in and hang out at you. Say, now, I don't know what time's in.
12. I'd like to talk some more about,
South County.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Sorry for coming in late.
It was fine. You got the most of it. Everything I was talking about before then was totally unimportant.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Yeah. I'll be
and
here.
it's completely different market down there, once you hit Rice County.
Yeah.
Rice County, Dodge County, Steele County, Waseca County.
You'd be, so these things, these trends. Overpriced homes are a problem everywhere. It's not political. It's the same stuff. It just, in other words, there's not as many sales. It's a different market, but the same problem exists, and that is homes that go on the market for too much, and it ends up costing them so much time. So in the amount of time and money may be a slightly different, but it's not that much different. Because I've already looked at everything before.
I know I have a commissioners meeting I have to get to, but.
Yeah, but tomorrow afternoon, I'm happy to go through that with you. Yep. So, yeah.
So good.
Oh
my God.
Do you want to like a set?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, for us.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll stop at the front if you want to see you here. So, I'll be here in the morning. Like 8:20 for the class. We come to conference early until 11. Yeah, so,
I won't be able to go there. But yeah, we'll see if the conference will be available for.
Yeah.
Your
lucky trip.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Love to do it, as a matter of fact. My favorite thing to do. All right, I guess I'm ending the Zoom. I'm guessing that nobody's on there right now.